My name is Daniel Kearns. I work as a fire lookout for the U.S. Forest Service in the Bitterroot Range of western Montana. Officially, I'm stationed at Thompson Ridge Lookout Tower, an old steel-legged structure perched over a swath of dense lodgepole pine and granite slopes. Unofficially, my job is part meteorologist, part radio operator, and part hermit. It was August 17th, a Wednesday, and I woke up with the kind of stillness that usually precedes a change in weather. The thermometer on the window read 53 degrees. The air felt electric, like something pressing beneath the calm. My shift started at 600 hours. I logged visibility, wind direction, and temperature in the morning report, then brewed coffee thick enough to float an MRE spoon. By 0700, the forest was awake. The pines swayed gently, and the horizon was clean. No smoke columns, no haze. I watched the light crawl across the ridges, my binoculars tracing each valley where the mist retreated. There's a piece to it that people in cities can't understand. You're alone, but not lonely. The forest hums at its own frequency, and you start to hear it after a few weeks. The click of pine cones falling, the rattle of insects in the grass, even the tremor of wind shifting across slopes miles away. At 8:30, I radioed the district office to confirm the weather forecast. Routine check. The dispatcher's voice, Marie, was clear and casual. Morning, Thompson Ridge. Any visual disturbances? Negative. Sky's clean. Wind coming east-northeast, 5 knots. Copy that. Forecast says humidity dropping. Expect elevated fire danger after 1500. Roger. Then she added something that snagged in my mind. By the way, Daniel, ignore any code black calls. We're running a systems test on the network later today. Don't respond if you hear it. Code black? I asked. Never heard that one. Yeah, it's new. Just a test phrase. Don't worry about it. The tone was too light, too deliberately casual. The kind people use when they're instructed not to elaborate. I noted it in the logbook anyway, more out of curiosity than protocol. The rest of the morning was quiet. I scanned from the catwalk, sipping coffee gone cold. Around noon, a pair of hikers appeared on the southern ridge, tiny figures moving steadily along a switchback trail. I logged their presence. Standard practice. They waved toward the tower, just dots of motion against the green expanse. I raised my hand back. It's strange, the comfort that comes from seeing another human shape when you've been alone for days. At 1300 hours, the wind began to shift. Gusts from the west brought the smell of ozone and pine pitch. The air turned drier, sharper. I updated the log. Visibility high, humidity 23%, wind WSW at 11 knots. At 14:35, the forest went silent. It's not just an expression. Everything, birds, insects, the low background hum of trees, cut out in the span of seconds. Even the wind died. The whole valley looked flattened, like the air itself stopped moving. I stepped onto the catwalk, half expecting thunderheads to form. Nothing. Blue sky, perfectly clear. Then the radio crackled. It was a sharp burst, like static from deep down the line. I turned, expecting Marie or one of the rangers to check in. But the voice that came through wasn't one I recognized. Ridge, code black, Thompson. Ridge, code black, confirmed. The words bled with distortion. Male voice, low, rhythmic, no call sign, no location prefix. Just the same phrase, repeated. Code black, I grabbed the mic. This is Thompson Ridge. Say again. Identify yourself. No response. Only that faint, pulsing static, like breathing drawn through a wire. I waited a minute, then 5, nothing. I climbed down the stairs halfway, scanning the tree line for any sign of lightning or smoke. Nothing. But the silence still hung, thick and wrong, the kind that feels like someone listening. By 1500 hours, the wind picked up again. The forest came back to life in a rush of sound. The cicadas, the rustle, the natural rhythm resuming all at once, as if it had been paused. I wrote it off as a radio glitch and forced myself to eat something. A can of stew heated on the small propane burner. Still, the word Code Black kept rolling around in my head like a loose stone. At 16:30, another call came through. This time clear. Thompson Ridge, this is Lookout 6. Do you copy? It was Eli Barrett, stationed 40 miles south. Good guy. We'd met once at pre-season training.
Copy, Eli. What's your status?
He hesitated.
You been hearing anything weird today?
I glanced at the logbook. Define weird? Got a code black transmission at 1300. Thought it was a drill, but then I got another at 1420. Same voice, same phrase.
I tried calling dispatch, no answer. I frowned. Marie told me it was a systems test. Yeah, she told me that last week too. Only here's the thing, we don't have a code black in the system. A chill went through me, not the dramatic kind.
Just the small, deep realization that something official didn't line up. Eli, what does code black even mean? He exhaled sharply through the mic. No one knows. It's not in the manual.
I checked last season's binder.
It skips from code red to code white. Then his voice cut out mid-sentence. Clean, abrupt. Eli, you copy?
Only static. I tried dispatch again. Nothing, not even carrier tone.
The signal was dead. By 1700, the sun began dropping behind the ridge, casting long gold stripes across the forest. The hikers I'd seen earlier still hadn't come down. I checked the trail with binoculars. No movement. I kept scanning until dusk. At 1900, the radio came back alive with one short transmission. The same distorted voice as before. Thompson Ridge, stand by, code black, in effect. Then silence. I set the mic down, slowly, staring at the horizon. Somewhere in the timber below, a single crow called and stopped mid-cry. That was when I saw the first flicker of light. Not fire, not lightning. Just a cold white pulse between the trees, steady and low, like something breathing beneath the canopy. And the forest, once again, went completely still. The light kept pulsing, slow, deliberate. Too slow for a flashlight, too steady for a lantern. I counted the rhythm, 5 seconds on, 5 seconds off. Then nothing for a long moment before it began again. Somewhere deep in the timberline below Thompson Ridge, I raised my binoculars.
Nothing but darkness.
Even the white flash seemed to vanish when I tried to focus on it, like my eyes refused to hold it.
Every instinct told me it wasn't fire. No orange flicker, no smoke.
Just that ghost white blink. Dispatch, this is Thompson Ridge, I said into the radio. I'm observing an unidentified light source approximately 3 miles southeast, below elevation 6200.
Please advise, only static.
Then, faintly, a whisper of breath across the channel.
Not words.
Just air moving close to the mic. Marie? I said softer now. If this is the systems test, please confirm. Over. Nothing. The sun was gone. Blue hour fading fast into night. The forest below looked like a single dark mass, impenetrable, ancient, patient. My spotlight cut through maybe 50 yards before being swallowed by black. I hesitated before switching it on. Protocol said not to draw attention during potential poacher or wildfire observation, but this wasn't either. The silence was starting to feel heavy, pressing into the tower itself. The beam cut through the air like a sword.
No animals scattered.
Not a single moth hit the glass.
The light from my lamp just
stopped midway, as though it hit fog that wasn't there. Then came the sound, a single knock on the lower metal stairwell. It was faint but unmistakable. Not wind, not the ping of cooling metal.
a human rhythm.
One strike, then two slower, deliberate hits. I froze. The only way up was the ladder bolted to the tower's frame. Anyone climbing it would be visible from the catwalk.
I stepped out, flashlight aimed straight down, half expecting to see a ranger, maybe a hiker who'd lost their way. But the ladder was empty.
Every rung gleamed silver in the beam. The ground 30 feet below was shadow and pine needles. Then the knock came again, this time behind me, higher up. I spun around, light swinging. Nothing. Just the narrow door that led back into the cab.
Open just slightly. I could have sworn I'd latched it. A cold gust brushed through the doorway, carrying the smell of wet stone, though it hadn't rained in weeks.
I stepped inside, shut the door, and locked it. The interior felt suddenly small, glass windows on all sides, the darkness pressing in close. The radio hissed once more. Then Eli's voice broke through, jagged and strained. "Daniel!" "You copy? Don't
respond to code black. Don't. Static swallowed him whole. I grabbed the mic.
Eli say again. What's happening?" The next voice wasn't his. Thompson Ridge. "Stand by?" It was the same calm, low male tone from earlier. No call sign, no breathing. Just steady composure, as if reading from a script. Confirmed visual contact. I lowered the mic slowly, scanning out the east window. The light was closer. No pulse now, steady glow rising through the trees, maybe half a mile down slope. It cast long, trembling shadows across the forest, like something burning underground. Then faintly, movement. Between the trees, a shape, tall, narrow, human only in outline.
It didn't move with the sway of branches.
It stood still for several seconds, then shifted forward, its edges blurring as though refracted through heat. My breath fogged the glass. I backed away. I reached for the field binoculars again, focusing on the clearing. The shape was gone. Then the radio clicked twice, soft, deliberate, like someone pressing the transmit key without speaking. I keyed in. "Identify yourself." "This is Thompson Ridge Lookout. Over." No reply. Just another slow double click. I turned off the main light inside the tower. Darkness folded over me. My heartbeat filled the silence. From somewhere in the distance, a sound rolled across the valley, deep and low, like a landslide muffled by distance. It went on for nearly 30 seconds before fading. When it stopped, I realized the forest had gone silent again. That was when my tower's door latch clicked, just once. Metal against metal, I turned. The lock was still in place. I could see it glinting in the dim red light from the radio. But the handle trembled, barely perceptible. Someone or something was testing it. I didn't move, didn't breathe. After a long minute, the shaking stopped. I stayed frozen another 5, my hand gripping the flare gun mounted near the window. The red plastic felt absurdly light, useless against whatever stood outside. Then faintly, I heard steps. Not climbing this time, but circling the tower below. Slow crunches through pine needles, deliberate, unhurried. I followed the sound as it made one full orbit around the structure.
Then another.
Each pass slower than the last. Finally, silence. The radio broke it. Marie's voice returned, sudden and flat. "Thompson Ridge, this is District Dispatch." "Do you read?" Relief nearly buckled my knees. I grabbed the mic.
Copy dispatch.
I've been receiving unverified code black calls. I've got unidentified lights in the forest, possible trespassers. Thompson Ridge, she interrupted softly. We don't have a code black, we never did. Her voice was different now, stripped of the usual calm. Stay inside the tower, Daniel. Whatever you see out there, do not make visual contact.
Lock the hatch. And don't answer the radio again unless you hear my name first. Repeat that back.
Copy, I said slowly. But as I did, another voice came through the speaker, perfectly overlapping hers. Same cadence, same tone, same voice. Stay inside the tower, Daniel.
Don't make visual contact. Lock the hatch. Only this one sounded slightly delayed, like an echo recorded seconds earlier. Both transmissions ended at once. I pulled the plug from the radio's battery unit.
The tower fell into pure silence. Through the east window, the white light still burned in the trees, closer than before, no longer hidden by the forest, but rising above it. The glow seemed to reach upward, spilling pale colour onto the ridge, as if the mountain itself were exhaling light. And beneath that eerie brilliance, I saw the two hikers from earlier, standing perfectly still at the edge of the clearing, facing the tower. They didn't move, they didn't wave, they just stood, heads tilted slightly up toward me, the light crawling over their faces until I couldn't tell if their eyes were open or not. Then, without turning, the taller one raised a hand and pressed something to his mouth, a radio handset, and the static began again. For a long time I just stood there, frozen, staring through the glass. The two hikers, if that's what they were, hadn't moved. The taller one still held the radio to his mouth, but no sound came through now. Just the hush of the forest, stretched thin. My mind kept looping the same thought. They can't be alive. No one stands that still.
Not in the cold.
Not for that long. I forced myself to blink, to breathe, to think like a lookout again. I grabbed my field log and jotted a shaky note. Unidentified individuals southeast clearing, approx 400 yards from base. Non-responsive to signal.
Light source unknown. The words looked wrong even as I wrote them. Then through the glass, the shorter figure shifted.
Not a step, just a tilt, like a mannequin swaying on a string. The white light brightened in response, pulsing once, twice, and my radio, still unplugged, came alive. It shouldn't have been possible. The power cable hung loose from the battery port, yet the speaker crackled, faint at first, then with sharp clarity. Thompson Ridge, confirm visual contact. I backed away from the desk. My heart was hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. The voice repeated itself, same inflection, identical phrasing. It wasn't live speech.
It was playback. Confirm visual contact. I remembered what Marie had said. Don't answer unless you hear my name first. I didn't. I just stood there,
waiting for something else to happen. Outside, the light in the trees began to strobe, slower now, irregular. The two figures started walking. They moved uphill toward the tower, their steps jerky but synchronized, like they were following a metronome only they could hear. The climb from that clearing to the ridge base takes at least 15 minutes for a trained ranger, but they covered it in less than 5. I could see them clearly now, the glow from below, washing their outlines. They were wearing park-issue jackets, the same deep green I wore, reflective badges glinting faintly at the shoulder. I tried to make sense of it. Rangers out on patrol, maybe checking a flare, maybe lost in radio interference, except no one was scheduled in this sector.
And no one should have been carrying a transmitter that reached my frequency without ID. I turned off every interior light in the tower. Darkness settled heavy around me.
The glow from below was enough to see by, just enough to outline the shape of the ladder descending to the ground. The taller one reached it first. He stopped, head tilted up. Then the other followed, one hand on the metal rung. I didn't wait. I bolted the hatch shut, threw the safety latch over it, and wedged my toolbox against the door. My flashlight lay on the table, but I didn't dare turn it on. Every sound seemed amplified. The creak of the tower in the wind, my breathing, the faint hum of static that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. The first knock came a moment later. Light, polite almost.
As if someone wanted to announce themselves, then another, harder. I kept my hands on the flare gun, aiming at the floor near the hatch.
The smell of sweat and metal filled the small cabin. The knock stopped. Through the floor grating, I heard something drag along the steel. Slow, scraping.
Not climbing.
Circling again, I thought of Eli, of his broken transmission. Don't respond to code black. The radio sparked again, unpowered. This time it wasn't a voice, it was breathing. Slow, rhythmic, perfectly steady. Then a whisper just beneath it, as if two frequencies overlapped. Daniel, my throat locked. Daniel, open the hatch. It was Marie's voice, or almost. The pitch was right, the tone gentle, but the pacing was wrong. Each word carried too much space between it, like it had been spliced together. Stay inside, I said under my breath, repeating her real warning. Lock the hatch. I pressed my hands against the floor, listening.
No more scraping.
Only that faint hum from the trees below. The glow was shifting again, widening, spreading outward through the valley like fog catching light. Then the world went silent a third time. Not quiet, silent. No wind, no night insects, not even the usual creak of timber. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the valley. A vibration ran through the floor, subtle but real. The tower trembled, like something massive had moved beneath it. The glass windows buzzed in their frames. When the radio spoke again, it wasn't a voice at all. It was a tone, low, resonant, continuous, a perfect sine wave that vibrated through my teeth. I clamped my hands over my ears, but it didn't help. It was inside, somewhere deeper, humming in the bones. Then, underneath that tone, came a second voice, layered, distorted, impossible to locate, visual contact confirmed. I stumbled toward the window, half from instinct, half from the sick need to see. They were standing halfway up the ladder now, both of them.
Motionless again, staring up into the glass. Their faces were wrong.
Not monstrous, not even mutilated, just blank. Like every feature had been flattened into smooth skin, except for the faint suggestion of eyes where the shadows hit. I stepped back. The floor groaned. The shorter one tilted its head, as though listening to the sound of my weight shifting above. And then they began to climb again. I fired the flare gun straight down the hatch seam. The explosion of red light filled the cabin, deafening in the confined space. The flare burst through the small gap and fell, spinning, painting everything outside in a blood glow. The figures didn't flinch. The flare hit the ground, burning fiercely. In that red haze, I saw something the white light hadn't shown, a third figure standing beyond the clearing, half hidden in the tree line. Much taller than the others, motionless, head tilted upward, watching. The flare sputtered and died. Darkness snapped back in an instant, When my eyes adjusted, the ladder was empty. I waited. 10 seconds, 20, a full minute. Then a soft metallic sound came from the roof hatch above me. Something was climbing over the tower. My hands shook as I reloaded the flare gun.
I aimed it upward, but before I could fire, a shadow crossed the skyline.
Just a silhouette, tall, narrow, bending to peer through the glass. Then it whispered, close enough that the sound vibrated the window pane. Code black confirmed. The light from the valley surged again, flooding the room with pale white glow. My radio crackled, alive once more, and Marie's voice, real this time, breathless, cut through the static. Daniel!
Get out of there! Evacuate the tower immediately.
But I couldn't move, because when I turned toward the window, the entire forest below was shining. Thousands of tiny white points flickering between the trees, like stars rising from the ground, and every one of them was moving toward the tower.
I'd seen wildfires before.
You learn the color and speed of them, the way orange smoke licks upward, the way wind shapes a burn. This wasn't fire. It moved against the wind.
It moved with intent. The valley below shimmered with 1,000 points of cold light.
They crawled through the trees, not spreading but converging, climbing the slope in slow, even waves toward the base of the tower. From above, it looked like the Milky Way had fallen and was trying to reassemble itself. Marie's voice crackled again through the radio, sharp and urgent.
Daniel, evacuate now. Head west on the service trail. Move!
I grabbed the mic, my throat dry. Marie, what are they? What's a code black? Static. Then a voice, not hers. Visual contact confirmed. The tone was the same as before, steady, inhumanly calm. I dropped the mic, no more waiting. I slung my pack over my shoulder, grabbed my flashlight, and kicked the toolbox off the hatch. The metal groaned open under my boots. I hesitated just long enough to check below. The lights were closer, maybe 100 yards down slope. The air smelled metallic, like struck flint and ozone. No wind, no insects, no night sounds at all. I climbed down fast.
Every rung shrieked in the cold.
At 20 feet, I stopped and looked up. The skylight above glowed faintly. Something still crouched there, watching. It didn't follow.
It just turned its head as I descended, tracking me with that blank face. My boots hit the ground.
I turned west toward the service trail. The beam of my flashlight cut through the trees, trembling with my breath. The forest had changed.
That was the first thing I noticed.
The trees weren't where they should have been. Paths that should have led downhill now curved back into the slope. My bearings spun in my head like a compass losing north. I forced myself to keep moving.
I knew this forest better than most people know their neighborhoods. Every ridge, every bend of the creek.
But tonight, everything looked just slightly off. Angles sharper, distances wrong. At the first switchback, I stopped to catch my breath. The light was closer now, no longer scattered, dense, like fog pooling low.
I could see movement within it, silhouettes, dozens of them.
Walking in unison, quiet, relentless. I turned off my flashlight and crouched behind a fallen log. The lights pulsed, sweeping through the trees. One passed within 20 yards. It wasn't a person. It was smaller, maybe 4 feet tall, its outline flickering between solid and transparent as it moved. It glided more than walked, the glow coming from inside it, like its skin was lit from within. It stopped, tilted its head. I held my breath. After a long moment, it turned and drifted down slope again, vanishing into the haze. I waited until my legs went numb, then rose slowly. My radio crackled softly, the battery nearly drained. Thompson Ridge, this is District Dispatch. Daniel, do you read? Marie again, this time clearer, steadier.
I'm here, I whispered.
I'm on the service trail heading west. The forest's wrong. The trail's changing. The lights, I know, she cut in.
Keep moving.
Don't look directly at them. Code Black protocols are containment. If you can reach Station 12, there's a truck there. What are they, Marie? A pause, then quietly. They're what's left. Static swallowed her words. I moved faster. The slope steepened, rocks sliding underfoot. Somewhere behind me, a branch snapped, then another, closer.
I didn't turn.
The urge to look was nearly unbearable, but every nerve screamed not to. At the next clearing, I stopped short. The two hikers stood ahead of me on the trail. Same stance, same stillness. The taller one held the radio to his mouth again, though I could see the wire dangling, disconnected. His head tilted, and my radio responded before I could react. Daniel, my own voice. Perfectly duplicated, slightly delayed. Daniel, it repeated. Confirm visual contact. The hikers began walking toward me. I turned and ran. Branches tore at my jacket, roots snagged my boots, but I didn't care. The trail dissolved into loose gravel and pine needles, the slope dropping faster than it should have. My flashlight flickered, then died. Behind me, the forest filled with whispers.
Not words, just the sound of dozens of people breathing in unison. I stumbled into a dry creek bed.
For a moment I thought I'd lost them. Then a glow bloomed through the fog ahead. White, cold. Something stood at the center of it, tall, thin, shoulders drawn tight, its body shaking as though holding back a scream. The light poured out of it, and the surrounding air shimmered like heat over asphalt. My radio came alive once more, this time blaring a single phrase on repeat. Code Black in effect. Containment compromised.
Evacuate Zone 7. Over and over, faster and louder until the words bled into noise. I dropped the radio and ran. The ground heaved under me.
Not like an earthquake, but like something shifting beneath the soil. The air filled with that low tone again, the one that vibrated through my teeth, and suddenly I wasn't sure which direction was up. The forest tilted. The trees leaned away from me, their trunks stretching unnaturally tall. I hit the ground hard, the wind knocked out of me. For a few seconds the world blurred into white and black shapes, alternating like a strobe. When it cleared, the glow was gone. The valley below looked normal again. The silence was gone too. Crickets chirped. Wind moved through the pines. Everything was exactly as it should be, except the tower. It was dark now, completely dark. The signal beacon on its roof no longer blinked red, and though it was nearly half a mile away, I could see something standing on the catwalk. A silhouette, perfectly still, looking in my direction. The radio at my feet buzzed once more, weak and warped. "Daniel, this is District Dispatch," Marie said, voice trembling. "You need to listen carefully. Code Black means breach of reality protocol. If you've seen the light, if it's interacted with you, you cannot return to base." My mouth went dry. "Marie, what does that mean?" "It means you're compromised. You stay isolated until sunrise. Do not let anyone approach you, no matter what they look like."
"I'm sending a chopper at first light." Then quieter. "If you hear me again before then, it's not me." The transmission cut. I sat there in the dirt, shaking, the forest whispering around me. For a long moment I considered climbing back to the tower anyway, but
When I looked up again, the figure on the catwalk had raised its arm, mimicking the motion I'd made earlier that morning when I waved to the hikers. And from the tree line behind it, the white light flared once more. This time, it didn't pulse. It grew, expanding upward until the ridge itself glowed like a bone held to a flame. Then the radio whispered, so softly I almost didn't hear it. Containment failed. The forest went pale, not with daylight, something colder, flatter. The light from the ridge wasn't just shining anymore. It was seeping, spilling through the trees, washing color from everything it touched. The pines turned gray. My own hands looked bloodless in it. I ran until my lungs tore. The creek bed vanished behind me, replaced by steep switchbacks I didn't recognize. My compass needle spun lazy circles. North meant nothing. Somewhere above, the tower's beacon should have blinked red. It didn't. That ridge was now one long line of white, pulsing like a heartbeat beneath the mountain skin. I stopped, only when I couldn't breathe, collapsing beside a fallen log. The air was too quiet again.
No wind, no insects.
Just my heartbeat and the faint electric hum that came with the light. I tried the radio. Dispatch, this is Thompson Ridge Lookout. Daniel Kearns reporting. I am off tower, 1 mile west, seeking higher ground. Please respond. Silence. Then faintly the sound of static being drawn in and out like someone breathing through it. Marie, I said. You said if I hear you before sunrise, it's not you. No response. Then, very softly, the radio crackled.
Daniel, the voice said.
You're safe now. I dropped it. The words came again, a little clearer. Daniel, you did well. Come back to the tower. The light flickered between the trees as if echoing the voice. I pushed myself upright, backing away. The sound didn't come from the radio anymore. It came from everywhere. Each tree seemed to vibrate with it, the syllables reverberating in the bark. Come back. I ran again. Uphill this time, toward the western ridge. Branches clawed at my sleeves, roots catching underfoot. The light thickened behind me, its hum deepening into that low tone again, the one that seemed to rattle my bones. After 10 minutes of climbing, I reached an old service cabin, half collapsed, used years ago for trail crews. The roof sagged in the middle, and the windows were black with moss, but it was shelter. I kicked the door open, stumbled inside, and barred it with a rusted shovel handle. The interior smelled like dust and old pine oil. My flashlight caught a trail register nailed to the wall. Names of rangers and crew leads from the 1970s, penciled in fading handwriting. One entry stood out, J.S. Barron, Code Black, 8/17/1974, the same date.
51 years ago to the day. My stomach turned.
I looked closer. There were faint smudges under the writing, as if someone had tried to erase the line and failed. Outside, the humming had grown louder. The light pooled against the windows, seeping through the cracks in the wood like vapor. Then came the knock. 3 slow taps against the door. Calm, human. I stayed still. Another knock, this time softer. Then a voice, low and almost apologetic. Daniel.
It's me, Marie. The tone was perfect, warm, familiar.
But she sounded too close. The radio was still lying in the dirt outside. I told you not to answer the radio, she said. But I need you to open the door now. I didn't move. She waited. Then gently, they won't stop unless you open it. The windows glowed brighter, white, bleeding into the room. Shapes moved within the light, shadowed outlines of people, dozens of them, faces indistinct. They pressed against the glass, not banging, not violent, just present,
as though waiting for permission. I stepped back until I hit the far wall. The voice came again, quieter now. You've seen it, Daniel.
You're part of it.
That's what code black means.
You can't hide from it. I squeezed my eyes shut.
You're not Marie. A long silence. Then, not anymore. The door shuddered once. Just once.
Then everything outside went still. I opened my eyes. The light was gone. Total darkness. The kind that presses against you, thick and absolute. My flashlight had died.
I clicked it a few times. Nothing. I waited. 10 seconds, 30. 1 minute, then very faintly from far off, the crackle of a radio. Daniel, sunrise in 30.
It was Marie again, distant, urgent. If you can hear me, stay where you are. We're inbound. Keep line of sight on the western horizon. Do not engage with any visuals. I fumbled for the watch on my wrist. 4:38 a.m. sunrise in less than an hour. I pushed the door open a crack. The forest outside was dark again, truly dark. I could see the stars overhead, real stars, not the moving lights. The ridge was still pale, but fading like snow melting from the trees. I stepped outside carefully, scanning the slope below.
No movement, no sound. Then something shifted behind me.
A reflection, faint and wrong, in the cabin's window glass. I turned. Standing just inside the doorway was me, same jacket, same flashlight clipped to the vest, the same small rip on the right shoulder I'd torn 2 days ago hauling firewood. It was smiling.
I didn't remember ever smiling like that. Sunrise, it said softly, my own voice echoing back.
We made it. I stumbled backward, tripping over a root. The figure stepped forward, into the early light leaking over the ridge. Its face flickered, shifting between mine and something smooth, blank, luminous. Then just as suddenly it began to dissolve, breaking apart into thin streaks of white that lifted upward like dust motes. Within seconds, it was gone. I stood there until the first real light of dawn touched the trees. The forest looked normal.
Birds called.
Wind rustled the branches. The tower stood silent on the opposite ridge, smoke grey against the sky. The beacon was still dark. I picked up the radio again, my hands trembling. "Dispatch, this is Thompson Ridge Lookout."
Code black event contained. I think it's over. Static.
Then Marie's voice, steady this time, weary.
Copy, Daniel. Stay put.
"We've got you on visual from the chopper." I exhaled, half laughing, half crying. "You have no idea what's down here." "We do," she said quietly. "That's why the code exists." The line went dead. I looked once more toward the tower. The catwalk was empty now. But as the sun climbed higher, a faint reflection flashed from the window, like someone moving inside, just out of sight. And, for a moment, I thought I saw myself standing there again, hands on the railing, watching me from the distance, waiting for the next shift to begin. The helicopter came just after 6.
I heard it before I saw it. Rotor blades thudding low over the ridge, scattering pine needles like rain.
The sound should have felt like rescue. It didn't. I stood in the clearing outside the old cabin, squinting against the sun. Everything looked too sharp, too clean. The forest had the brittle perfection of a photograph, colors just slightly oversaturated, every line too exact. The chopper circled once before descending into the meadow below. 2 figures stepped out, rangers in clean uniforms, their faces hidden behind visors. One waved for me to approach. My radio buzzed. "Thompson Ridge, this is dispatch."
Visual confirmed.
"Proceed to extraction point." Marie. The same calm tone as always, but there was something hollow behind it. I slung my pack and walked downhill. The closer I got, the less sound the forest made. Even the helicopter noise seemed muffled, like someone had stuffed cotton in my ears. The first ranger met me halfway. Tall, solid build. No name tag, no insignia other than a plain patch that said USFS. He raised a hand in greeting, but his movement was stiff, too deliberate, like each joint remembered how to move only by habit. "You Daniel Kearns?" "Yes, sir." My voice cracked from disuse. "Copy that," he said, without nodding. "You've been exposed to an active code black field. You're coming with us for debrief." His partner handed me a silver thermal blanket, though the morning wasn't cold. I noticed neither of them had dirt on their boots. Not a fleck of mud, not a twig stuck to their pants. We climbed into the chopper.
Inside smelled like ozone and alcohol wipes.
The pilot didn't look back. The dash was dark except for one blinking green light. As we lifted off, I turned toward Thompson Ridge. From above, the forest looked normal again. The light was gone. The tower stood quietly against the slope, thin smoke rising from its stove chimney, something that hadn't burned since yesterday morning. "Marie," I said into the headset, "you still on frequency?" Static. Then her voice, faint. "We have you, Daniel."
"Sit tight."
"We're heading to base." The ranger across from me adjusted his earpiece like he couldn't quite hear her. "How long was I out there?"
I asked. He looked at me for the first time.
His eyes were pale grey, too pale. "You've been off comms for 24 hours. "That's impossible," I said. "It's only sunrise. I left the tower last night." He didn't reply. We flew west, following the slope toward the service station. Below us, the forest rolled endlessly, ridges, canyons, lakes catching the morning light. But something about the pattern felt wrong. There were too many clearings, all identical in shape. Perfect circles burned into the canopy, each about 50 meters wide. "Do you see that?" I asked, pointing. Neither ranger looked. The taller one just said, "Hey, keep your eyes forward, sir." The radio clicked again. Not Marie this time. A male voice, low and even. Containment perimeter breached at Thompson Ridge. Visual anomaly at 10,000 feet. All personnel maintain radio silence. The pilot's hands tightened on the controls. The chopper dipped briefly, then stabilized. I looked back through the window. The tower was gone. One moment it stood there, black against the ridge. The next, nothing but trees. No smoke, no shadow. Just the slope unbroken. My stomach dropped. "Did you see that?" Neither ranger answered. We touched down 15 minutes later at a temporary landing site, an empty meadow with 2 tents and a portable command trailer. The air smelled faintly of burnt metal. A woman in a hazard suit met me as I stepped out. I thought it might be Marie at first. The same height, same build. But when she spoke, the voice didn't match. "Mr. Kearns, I'm Agent Larkin, USFS Containment Division. Please come with me." Inside the trailer, the light hummed overhead. Every surface gleamed sterile white. She handed me a form labeled Incident Report. Code black, environmental breach. Most of the boxes were blank. "Please describe the initial event," she said. I told her everything. The static, the lights, the figures, the voice that sounded like Marie. I left nothing out. She wrote without looking at me, her handwriting small and precise. When I finished, she folded her notebook and said quietly, "You said you saw your own likeness." "Yes." "And that it dissolved at sunrise?"
"Yes," she nodded slowly.
"That's consistent with prior cases." I stared at her. "Prior cases?" She didn't answer. Outside, the helicopter's engine cut off. Silence fell so completely that I could hear my pulse again. I leaned forward. "What is code black, really?" Larkin looked at me for a long time, as if weighing whether I deserved the truth. Then she said, "A breach in perceptual containment, a place where observation collapses into replication. When the forest looks back at you," I felt sick, And what happens to people exposed? They're monitored, she said simply. Some stabilize, some don't. Through the window behind her, I saw movement near the tree line. Someone standing just beyond the tents, still as stone. For a second, I thought it was one of the rangers.
Then I realized it was wearing my jacket. Agent Larkin, I whispered. There's someone out there, she turned.
The clearing was empty. When she faced me again, her expression had changed. Not alarmed, resigned. We'll run some checks before you leave the site. Do not engage with any reflections, surfaces, or shadows until further notice. That night, they gave me a cot in the tent.
No one else spoke to me.
The air buzzed faintly with the same electrical hum I'd heard on the ridge.
I barely slept. At dawn, I woke to find a small envelope placed on the table beside me. No markings except my name written in block letters.
Inside was a single sheet of paper, code black. Self-recognition beyond threshold. You see yourself again, report immediately. Do not approach. Below that, a handwritten note, different ink, hurried script. You never left the tower. I stepped outside. The tents were gone. The meadow was empty. The air was still. In the distance, on the far ridge, Thompson Tower stood again. Red beacon blinking like nothing had ever happened. And I swear, on the catwalk, I saw a man in a green ranger jacket lift his hand and wave. The red beacon blinked once every 3 seconds.
Same rhythm as always.
I'd logged it hundreds of times.
Only now, watching from the meadow, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was blinking at me, not for air patrol. The tower looked new.
Too new. The paint unchipped, the railings unbent. Morning sun caught on its windows like clean glass, though no one had washed them in years. I started walking. The forest between me and the ridge felt hollow, the way sound behaves in an empty room. My boots sank noiselessly into the soil. Each step I took, the world behind me seemed to fade a little. First the tents, then the landing site, until even the faint whine of the helicopter was gone. When I looked back, there was nothing but tree line and mist. I told myself I'd only go far enough to confirm it wasn't a mirage. Just close enough to prove the tower was real, standing solid. The trail should have wound around the ridge. Instead, it ran straight, steep, and impossibly short. Within minutes, I was standing at the base of the steel legs. They gleamed. No rust, no dents.
No sign that last night had ever happened. I craned my neck upward.
The catwalk rail caught sunlight like a mirror. For a moment I thought I saw movement, someone stepping out, a silhouette that matched mine too perfectly. Marie, I called, out of habit more than hope. Only wind answered, sighing through the pines. The ladder rungs were warm to the touch.
That shouldn't have been possible.
The air was cold, but the metal felt almost body warm, as though it had been climbed just seconds ago. I began to ascend. Every sound echoed double, the real clank of my boots, followed by a faint, delayed echo, a second set of footsteps matching each move half a beat later. When I stopped, the echo didn't. It climbed one more rung, then fell silent. By the time I reached the catwalk, my hands were slick with sweat. The door to the lookout camp was open a few inches. I could see my old mug on the desk, my thermos, the logbook open to the last entry I'd written yesterday morning. No smoke visible. Clear skies. Inside smelled like coffee and dust. Everything exactly where I'd left it. Except the radio. It was powered on, a faint green light pulsing. The battery I'd unplugged was neatly reattached, cables smooth, no damage. The speaker hissed softly. Then my own voice came through. "This is Thompson Ridge. Visibility high. Humidity 23%. Wind WSW at 11 knots. Word for word. My log from before the silence started. Then again, same tone, same cadence. But each replay was slightly off, the rhythm shifting like a tape warping. I reached over and switched the unit off. The hiss stopped. Outside, the forest spread wide under full daylight. Nothing strange, no lights, no movement.
For the first time since this began, I thought maybe I'd lost my mind.
Maybe I'd blacked out, hallucinated the night, dreamt the whole thing in the feverish dark. Then I saw the envelope on the windowsill, plain white, my name written in the same block letters as before. Inside was another note. Observation. Complete. Await instructions. Do not descend. The paper was warm. I set it down, backing away. My reflection stared from the window, drawn, pale, eyes ringed in grey.
But something in that reflection didn't move when I did. I lifted my hand.
The reflection lifted half a second late. It smiled first. The air in the tower thickened, vibrating faintly like the beginning of a storm. The red beacon outside blinked faster now, once a second, then twice. I heard footsteps on the ladder. No voice, no radio, just the soft metallic rattle of someone climbing, slow and steady. I waited at the door, flare gun raised, heart pounding in my throat. The first hand appeared. Mine. Same knuckle scar, same pale wristband. Then the rest of me pulled into view. He looked up, eyes meeting mine. There was no malice there, just calm recognition. He smiled again, the same wrong timing. Containment restored, he said quietly. My voice. He stepped onto the catwalk, boots hitting the same grooves mine always did. I backed away. What are you? He tilted his head.
I'm the version that stayed. Something in the tone broke me open. Grief, fear, relief, all tangled. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to, he said.
You left. The system replaced you. That's what code black means. The radio clicked on by itself, green light brightening. Marie's voice came through calm again. Thompson Ridge. Confirm status. Two voices answered at once. Mine, all clear. His, all clear. Static swallowed us both. The tower hummed, low and steady. Outside, the forest shimmered, trees bending slightly, not in wind, but in rhythm, like something beneath the surface was breathing again. I stepped closer to the door, watching my double. He didn't move to stop me. Just looked out at the valley with a kind of reverence. It always resets, he said. You'll understand soon. Then almost gently, he reached out and placed his hand on my shoulder. Cold. Solid. Real. The world flickered. White light surging through the windows, flooding everything. For an instant, I saw dozens of towers across identical ridges, each with a Daniel inside, each watching the others. Every movement mirrored in delayed echo, then darkness. When I opened my eyes, I was sitting at the desk again. The logbook open. The clock read 0700. I wrote automatically. Visibility high. Wind east, northeast, 5 knots. The forest outside swayed, peaceful, bright. The hum beneath it was back to its old pitch. For a while, I just sat there, staring through the glass. Then the radio crackled softly. Marie's voice. Morning, Thompson Ridge. Any visual disturbances? I hesitated. My reflection smiled faintly. Negative, I said. Sky's clean. Copy that. The channel clicked off. I looked out across the valley. In the distance, Where another ridge rose through morning haze, a second tower blinked red, perfectly in sync with mine. And in that tower's window I thought I saw a figure wave. The day passed in fragments. I must have written the same weather line 20 times, my handwriting identical each time. The ink never dried. It just sat there, gleaming, like it refused to belong to paper. By noon, the valley shimmered in heat. No smoke, no haze, nothing out of place, except me. I'd caught my reflection in the window more than once, and each time it seemed a second slower to blink, a half step late to breathe. I stopped looking. The radio stayed quiet until early afternoon. Then Marie's voice returned, soft and precise as always.
Thompson Ridge, copy status check.
I pressed the transmit key. All systems normal. Visibility 10 miles.
No activity. Pause. Understood, she said.
Maintain observation until sundown. Her tone held something final in it, like a door quietly closing. I left the radio on and stepped out onto the catwalk. The world looked the way it should. Pines, granite, sunlight curling off the river far below. But the colour of the sky bothered me. It was too even, like a blue painted on glass. Around 1500 hours, movement caught my eye on the southern ridge. Another lookout tower, smaller, skeletal, rose from the trees.
I didn't remember there being a second structure that close.
It wasn't on any map, yet its red beacon blinked perfectly in sync with mine. I lifted the binoculars. Someone stood on its catwalk, leaning against the rail, writing in a notebook. Even from here, the posture was familiar. The slight hunch, the slow turn of the head toward the horizon. Then the figure looked up through the lenses.
Straight at me, it was me. He lifted a hand in greeting, calm and deliberate.
And in the same instant, my own hand twitched upward, unbidden, to mirror the motion. The forest below stilled again, that same awful hush. The air flattened. My radio clicked to life, automatic, unpowered this time. Containment synchronized, the male voice said. The same one from the first code black transmission. Then another layer joined it. My voice, repeating the phrase at half volume, slightly delayed. Containment synchronized. The lights on both towers began to strobe faster. I backed inside. The air smelled metallic, charged. The temperature dropped so quickly that my breath fogged. The logbook's pages fluttered, though there was no wind. The radio hissed again. Marie, or the thing using her voice, spoke in a near whisper. Daniel, you've completed observation. Please remain stationary. Synchronization ensures stability. I pressed the transmit key out of reflex. Marie, what happens if I don't? The hiss deepened into a low hum. The sound filled the room, vibrating through the glass. You'll unmake the perimeter, she said. The forest will forget you. Outside, clouds had begun to gather from nowhere, crawling over the peaks in perfect symmetry. I didn't know what terrified me more, being forgotten or being remembered by this. I shut off the radio, stuffed the logbook and my compass into my pack, and grabbed the ladder. The first rung was warm again, almost pulsing beneath my hand. Halfway down, the light shifted. The trees glowed faintly from within, like moonlight trapped under bark. The air thickened into a slow rhythm like breathing. Then came the whisper, threading through the pines, carried by the pulse of the forest itself. Come back! I dropped the last 10 feet, hitting the ground hard.
Pain shot up my knee.
The forest floor rippled slightly under impact, as if it wasn't solid earth anymore, but some stretched surface holding shape. I turned west, running. The slope blurred beneath me, and for the first time I realized I couldn't hear my own footsteps. only the echo of them, a half-beat late, coming from everywhere at once. Branches shifted, aligning themselves. The world felt like it was closing ranks, ushering me in a direction I hadn't chosen. After what felt like minutes, I broke into a clearing. At its center stood a mirror of the tower. Same height, same frame, same red light, blinking. The door at its base hung open, swaying gently. My radio buzzed even though it was turned off. "Daniel," said Marie's voice, clear, close. "Don't fight it. The system always balances. You leave, another replaces you. Let it take its shape." I stumbled backward, shaking my head. "No, I'm done." "Then look," she said. The forest brightened. Hundreds, no, thousands of watchtowers stood on every ridge and valley, each with its own faint beacon, each one manned by a figure moving in exact harmony with the others, an entire grid of mirrored lives stretching to the horizon. Each version of me turned its head at once, eyes lifting toward the sky. The light above the mountains flared white. For a moment, everything hung suspended, the trees, the air, even the noise of my pulse. Then came that familiar phrase, spoken by every voice at once. Code Black confirmed. The sound collapsed into silence. When I opened my eyes again, I was sitting at the desk in Thompson Ridge Tower. Dawn light washed the horizon. My coffee steamed. The radio blinked steady green. I checked my watch. Woe 600, August 17th. A perfect reset. Marie's voice came through the radio, warm and calm. "Morning, Thompson Ridge. Any visual disturbances?" I looked out over the valley. The sky was clean, the forest peaceful. But down in the far clearing, just visible between the trees, stood a man in a ranger jacket, staring up at my tower. His arm lifted slowly, a perfect echo of my wave. I pressed the transmit key. My voice sounded steady.
Negative.
"All clear. Copy that," Marie said. "Forecast calls for dry air today. Stay alert." The channel clicked silent. I sat there for a long time, waiting for something. Noise, static, any sign the loop might break. It didn't. Only when the sun hit full daylight did I see it, a shadow on the floor that wasn't mine. It moved with me almost, but a half-second late, I closed the logbook. The page was blank. The pen lifted on its own and wrote the entry anyway. Visibility high. Wind east-northeast, 5 knots. Outside, the red beacon blinked once, twice, then, through the glass, faint but unmistakable, I heard my own voice whisper from somewhere below the tower. Containment, synchronized. The forest hummed its answer. And somewhere, on another ridge, in another identical morning, I raised my hand, and another me waved back.